The termination letter, or I guess the resignation letter, since I wrote it myself, was already in my pocket when Richard Hargrove stood at the head of the conference table and started talking about the future of the company. The paper was folded in thirds, my signature drying on the bottom line. I'd written it in my truck before walking in that morning. Hands steady, engine still running, country radio playing something I didn't hear. 11 years of my life, and it fit on half a page. But let me start at the beginning. You need to understand how I got here. My name is Thomas Mercer. Tom to most people. I'm 54 years old, and for 11 years I ran pipeline operations for Hargrove Water Solutions out of San Antonio, Texas. We handled municipal water infrastructure contracts across the state, treatment plants, distribution systems, pump station upgrades, the kind of work that nobody thinks about until their tap water turns brown. I thought about it every single day. I was the one on the phone at midnight when a main broke in a subdivision in Pflugerville. I was the one who negotiated with the Corps of Engineers when a flood threatened our retention basin project in New Braunfels. I was the one who drove 3 hours to Laredo on a Saturday because the site supervisor misread a pressure rating and we had 4 hours before a critical valve blew. 3 months ago, Richard brought in his son-in-law. His daughter, Claire, had married Derek Stokes the previous spring destination wedding in Cabo, from what I heard, because none of us were invited. Derek came in on a Monday in late January, business casual, expensive, watch, handshake, that felt like he'd practiced it in a mirror. He told me he had a background in finance and had spent 2 years consulting for a logistics firm in Dallas. Richard introduced him at the morning meeting as a strategic operations analyst who was going to help modernize our processes. I nodded along with everyone else, figured he'd shadow some people, put together a few PowerPoints, then move on to something more suited to his taste. The man showed up to a field site in February wearing suede loafers. Instead, he kept showing up. Every vendor call I took, he was in the corner with his laptop. Every permitting meeting with the city, he had a chair pulled up 2 feet from mine. I walked him through TCQ compliance documentation, through cathodic protection logs, through the math behind hydraulic gradient calculations. He nodded like he understood. He asked questions that proved he didn't. Once, he signed off on a field inspection report without leaving the office, just printed it, signed it, put it in the folder. I caught it, pulled the real data, filed the correction, figured he'd learn, figured Richard would eventually put him somewhere less critical. I was the mule. I just didn't know it yet. The morning everything changed was a Tuesday in late April. Richard called the department heads into the main conference room. I got there early, poured bad coffee from the machine by the door, took my usual seat on the left side of the table. The room smelled like burnt plastic and old carpet, the way it always did when the Texas heat started creeping in before the AC caught up. The window unit in the corner rattled. Outside, the parking lot shimmered. Richard stood at the whiteboard, which was unusual. He normally sat. He had that particular expression he wore when he thought he was doing something generous, chin up, slight smile, like he was about to announce everyone was getting a raise. Effective June 1st, he said, we're formalizing a new leadership structure. Derek Stokes will be moving into the role of Vice President of Operations. The room did the thing rooms do. A few people shifted. Someone cleared their throat. 2 of the project managers started a light, uncertain clap that died out before it really started. Derek sat at the far end of the table, and I watched him do a little nod, modest and practiced, like he'd rehearsed the humility part. I stopped hearing the rest of it. VP of Operations. That was my title in everything but name for 6 years. I ran the operations. I carried the operations on my back through drought years and COVID shutdowns and a state audit in 2021 that would have cost us our 3 largest municipal contracts. If I hadn't spent 4 consecutive weekends rebuilding our back compliance documentation from scratch, nobody asked Derek to help with that. He wasn't here then. He was in Dallas, consulting on logistics for a company that shipped furniture. Richard kept talking about vision and scalability and fresh perspective. I looked down at my hands on the table, rough knuckles, a faded burn scar on my left wrist from a heat exchanger on a job site in Corpus Christi 8 years ago, dirt under the edge of my thumbnail that I hadn't gotten out from the site visit yesterday morning. Next to me, Derek's hands were folded clean and easy on the table. No scars, no calluses, just Claire's father's last name on a piece of org chart paper. The meeting ended. I walked out and went to the parking lot and sat in my truck with the engine running for a long time. Then I went back inside and found Richard in his office. He was already on the phone, leaning back in his chair, laughing at something. He held up a finger when he saw me 1 minute. I stood in the doorway and looked at his desk. Family photos, an old hard hat on the shelf behind him, the framed photo of the Laredo retention basin from its ribbon cutting. I was in that photo, off to the left, cut off at the elbow, because Richard had positioned himself in the center. He hung up. "Tom," he said, "good timing. I wanted to circle back with you about Derek's transition plan." I put the letter on his desk. He looked at it, picked it up slowly. His expression did not change all at once. It changed in stages, like ice cracking. The smile first, then the eye contact, then the color in his face. "This is a resignation letter," he said. 2 weeks' notice. I already sent the copy to HR. He set the paper down like it had weight to it. "Tom, I need you to understand this isn't the end of your trajectory here. There are lateral paths we haven't explored. Senior advisory roles. I've been advising for 11 years, I said. I was hoping for a different kind of trajectory." He leaned forward. "Look, Derek is family. You understand how these things work, but that doesn't diminish what you've built here. Your name is on every major project we have. You leave now, there's a real gap." "I know there's a gap," I said. "I created it." He exhaled through his nose. "Be smart about this, Tom. You've got a daughter in her last year of nursing school. You've got a house. You're 54. Nobody's going to be lining up to pay you what I'm paying you to start something new at your age." There it was. I'd been waiting for it. "I understand the concerns," I said, "but they're mine to manage." He tried 3 more angles: a senior director title, a salary bump in 18 months, direct oversight of 2 major contracts, reporting nominally to Derek but functionally autonomous. Every offer was a variation of the same thing: stay small, stay useful, stay quiet. I said no to each one. Not loudly, just clearly. He finally sat back. "If you leave mid-cycle, I can't protect your reputation in this industry. San Antonio's a small market. I'm not asking you to protect anything," I said. 2 weeks, professional and clean. That's my offer. He didn't say anything else. I walked out and closed the door behind me without a sound. I drove home on autopilot, parked in my driveway, and sat there for 20 minutes without going inside. The neighbor's sprinklers were running. A mockingbird was doing its whole repertoire in the oak tree by the fence. Normal Tuesday evening. I felt hollowed out, but not broken. That was something. My daughter called while I was still in the truck. "Just checking in. Dad, you sound weird. You okay?" "Long day," I told her. "I'll explain later." Later turned out to be that same evening. Maya drove over after her shift at the hospital. She was doing her clinical rotations still in scrubs, smelling like antiseptic and the drive-through coffee she'd picked up on the way. We sat at the kitchen table and I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, which is something she gets from her mother. Her mother, Carol, who passed from a stroke 4 years ago, fast and without warning, the way those things sometimes happen. 61 years old. Maya had her same patience, her same way of going very still when something important was being said. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "So what now?" "I sent my resume to 4 places last night," I said. One of them was Cornerstone Municipal Group. She knew the name. "That's the big one. You've mentioned them before. They've been trying to poach people from us for 2 years. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup. "Dad, you know I need to ask. Money. I know. Nursing school was technically done in 3 months, but there was a licensing exam, potential residency applications if she went that route, and student loans I'd helped shoulder half of because Carol had wanted her to graduate with as little debt as possible. That had been our agreement, Carol's and mine, made before Carol got sick, honored after. I've got 5 months of reserves if I live lean," I said. "And I've got a meeting Thursday with Cornerstone." She looked at me the way her mother used to look at me when I said something she wasn't sure was smart. Then she said, "Mom would have told you to leave years ago." "I know. She would have actually told you to leave when Derek walked in the door in January." "Probably true." She stood up, hugged me, told me to eat something, and left. I sat at the table after she was gone and did the math for the 3rd time that day, on paper this time, just to see the numbers outside my head. Mortgage, $1,780 a month. Utilities, insurance, groceries. Maya's loan co-signature, $460. I could do 5 months, maybe 7 if I picked up contract consulting. I had to make Thursday count. Cornerstone Municipal Group occupied 2 floors of a newer building near the Pearl District. Lobby smelled like real coffee and whatever they put in the air filters at places that want you to feel like you've moved up in the world. Marcus Webb was waiting for me on the 8th floor. I'd met him twice at Texas water conferences, once in Austin, once in Corpus. He was the kind of guy who'd run actual pipe crews before he ran companies. That came through in how he talked, how he shook hands, how his office had field photos on the wall instead of motivational quotes. "Tom," he said, "we've been watching your work for a while." He didn't waste time. Cornerstone was expanding into the Hill Country municipal market and had 3 mid-sized cities lined up as clients: Kerrville, Marble Falls, Fredericksburg, all looking to upgrade aging water infrastructure under federal funding from the infrastructure bill. They needed someone who knew TCEQ compliance, who had contractor relationships across the state, and who could manage multi-site operations without someone holding their hand. He slid a folder across the desk. I opened it. Director of Infrastructure Operations. Base salary, $168,000. Performance incentives. Equity participation after year 1. Full benefits. Relocation support if needed, which I didn't need. It was $41,000 more than Hargrove had ever paid me. I read it twice, slowly. Then I looked up at Marcus. "There's no catch," he said, reading my face. "But I need to know you're in. Hargrove's going to come back with a counter. Richard doesn't like losing things he built. Already resigned. 2 weeks' notice in writing." Marcus smiled. 3 projects need a lead by Q3. I'd like you running the Kerrville expansion. It's the largest of the 3. Community's counting on it. I thought about Maya, her loan, the agreement I'd made with Carol. I thought about 7 years of midnight phone calls and Saturday drives, and a site audit I'd survived on black coffee and determination. "I'm in," I said. We shook hands. It felt like something settling into place. The next week and a half at Hargrove was quiet in the way that things get quiet before they tip over. Derek came to my desk 4 times a day, more than Ashley ever had, and with less self-awareness about it. He'd inherited 3 active projects and a vendor calendar he clearly hadn't read. The pump station in Seguin, what's the bid variance threshold before we escalate? 10%. It's in the project charter, page 9. What about the TCEQ renewal for the Castroville plant? Due in 22 days. Documents are in the shared drive, folder named Regulatory 2025. Don't file it before checking Section 4. Last year, they updated the groundwater disclosure requirements. He nodded and wrote things down. He was trying. I'll give him that. But there's a difference between trying to learn a job and having the foundational knowledge to do it under pressure. He didn't have it, and I was leaving in 10 days. On my second to last day, 3 clients called, all of them variations on the same call. A water district manager outside San Marcos. "Tom, we heard you're leaving. We're nervous. Derek called last week about accelerating the timeline and he didn't know what a pump curve was. The facilities director for a small city northeast of town. We trust your judgment. We don't know this new guy yet. A senior engineer at the firm handling design for the Castroville plant. No offense to whoever's taking over, but this project has a tight tolerance window. We need someone who's run one of these before." I called each one back, kept my voice calm. "I'm wrapping up my transition. Derek is capable of handling the day-to-day. The documentation is solid. If there are specific technical concerns, put them in writing, and I'll make sure they're addressed before I'm out." Every single one of them said some version of, "So you're really going?" "Yes, I'm really going." My last day, Richard didn't come out of his office. No handshake, no acknowledgement, nothing. HR sent a form email at 4:15. Derek stopped by my desk at 4:45, right as I was packing my last box. He seemed uncomfortable, which was appropriate. "I just want to say," he said, "this wasn't my call, the way it went down." I looked at him. He was 34 years old. He'd probably never had a job where he stayed past 5. He wasn't evil. He was just in over his head, and too closely related to the man at the top to be told so. "I know it wasn't," I said, "but you're in the chair now, so the rest of it is." He nodded. Didn't have anything to say to that. "Learn the systems," I told him. "Don't skip site inspections. When the Castroville renewal comes back from TCEQ, read the whole response, not just the summary page, and get someone with a P. License in the room before you sign off on any pressure modification. That's not a suggestion. He said he would. I don't know if he believed himself. I carried 1 box to my truck. 11 years and a piece of cardboard. A coffee mug Maya had gotten me for my birthday. A photo of Carol at the Laredo ribbon cutting. She'd come out for that one, and a worn copy of the Texas Water Code I'd had since 2009. I drove out of the parking lot and didn't look in the rearview mirror. Cornerstone moved fast. Marcus had me in meetings by my first week contractor introductions. client site visits, a full briefing on the federal funding requirements for the Hill Country projects. The pace was different. At Hargrove, the last 3 years had felt like driving with the parking brake on. At Cornerstone, Marcus cleared obstacles and let people work. When I said we needed a specific sub for the Kerrville geotechnical assessment, he approved it that afternoon. When I flagged a discrepancy in the pump sizing specs on the Marble Falls design, he said fix it, not let's see what the contractor thinks. 6 months later, I had 2 of the 3 projects on schedule and 1 ahead of it. I was reviewing soil boring reports on a Friday morning when Marcus walked into my office and put a magazine on my desk without saying anything. He just stood there, arms crossed, and let me read it. It was Texas Infrastructure Monthly, cover story. Hargrove Water Solutions hit with $2.1 million TCEQ fine following contamination event. I put the report down and read it. A pump station in Seguin, the same one Derek had asked me about, had experienced a valve failure in August. The investigation found the failure was tied to a pressure modification that had been approved without a licensed engineer present. The valve seat had been rated for a different spec than what the system was running. Water pressure had spiked into 2 miles of residential distribution line, 1,400 homes. Boil water notice for 11 days. Tests later came back showing sediment contamination from a corroded section that should have been flagged during a routine inspection. The inspection that had been conducted remotely, with a signature on a form that nobody physically filed, TCEQ had issued the maximum administrative fine. The EPA had opened a secondary inquiry. 2 affected families had filed suit. The Seguin Water District had canceled their contract. Richard had issued a public statement that read like it was written by someone who had never been to a job site. Derek had not commented. I set the magazine down. Marcus sat across from me. They called it a process failure, he said. It was a knowledge failure, I said. There's a difference. He nodded. How are you doing with this? Someone got sediment in their tap water for 11 days. That's not the same as a worker falling 3 floors, but people got sick. Kids got sick. I thought about the Seguin Water District manager who'd called me worried. I thought about what I would have done if I'd been the one who signed that form without walking the site. I'm glad I'm here, I said. I'm not glad about why I'm glad. He understood that. Didn't push further. The calls started the following week. People I'd worked with for a decade, reaching out through email, LinkedIn, a few direct to my cell. A project manager from Hargrove who'd been there longer than me. Tom, is Cornerstone hiring? I can see where this is going. A contractor I'd worked with since 2015. We're pulling our preferred vendor agreement with Hargrove. I wanted you to know first. The San Marcos Water District manager. We've already started the RFQ process for a new operations partner. I was hoping to talk to you about it. I forwarded everything to Marcus. He looked at the list and said something I've thought about since. He said, "You didn't poach anyone. You just became the landmark people navigate by when the road gets uncertain." I brought 2 of the Hargrove project managers on by November. Good people who saw the situation clearly and made a professional decision. 3 clients followed over the course of that fall and winter, carrying close to $55 million in contract value into Cornerstone's portfolio. Marcus split a performance bonus with me at year-end that I hadn't expected and didn't argue with. I deposited half of it into Maya's loan account. I was on the phone with her the evening I heard the final news about Hargrove. She'd called to tell me about a particularly rough 12-hour shift, the kind of night that tests whether nursing school really prepared you for nursing. We were talking about that when she said, "Oh, did you see? The Hargrove thing. Richard's out." I said, "I saw. They're saying Derek resigned, too." He did. Day after the EPA inquiry expanded. There was quiet on her end of the phone. Then, "Does that feel like anything?" I thought about it honestly before I answered. It felt like watching a building come down that I'd spent years trying to hold up. It felt like confirmation of something I already knew. It didn't feel like winning, because there wasn't anything to win. 1,400 houses on a boil water notice wasn't a win for anyone. It feels like the work was real, I said. All those years. The work was real. They just didn't let it matter. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I passed my boards." I sat back in my chair. "When?" "Got the results this afternoon." I didn't want to say anything until I was sure. She paused. "I know I should have told you first, but I called Mom's phone first. Just to hear the voicemail. I didn't have words for a second. Carol's voice was still on there. Maya had paid the bill every month since she died, just to keep it. "She would be so proud of you," I said. She said she already knew that. Then she said she wanted to take me to dinner that weekend. Her treat. She'd been waiting for something to celebrate. I told her to pick anywhere she wanted. I told her we'd celebrate right. A few weeks after that, I was at a Whataburger off I-10 on my way back from a site visit in Kerrville. Booths with cracked vinyl, a TV in the corner showing local news, a smell of grease and sweet tea that I associated with being tired and a long drive home. I was halfway through a meal I shouldn't have been eating when I saw him. Derek was in the booth across from me. No sport coat, no expensive watch. He had a laptop open and a stack of printed documents spread across the table, the kind of stack that meant studying, not presenting. He looked like he hadn't slept a full night in a while. He saw me at the same moment I saw him. His face went through several things in quick succession. "Tom," he said. "Derek." He looked at the table, then back up. "I figured you'd want to keep walking." I thought about it. Then I slid into the seat across from him without being invited. "What is all this?" I asked, nodding at the papers. He ran a hand through his hair. "I enrolled in an environmental engineering certificate program at UTSA. 6 months, nights and weekends." He gestured at one of the printed pages. "Also studying for the EIT. I know I can't sit for the PE for years, but I want to understand the actual math, not just the approval forms." I pulled one of the pages toward me and looked at it. Pressure calculations. Actual work. Not summary slides. "You should have started there," I said. He nodded. "Yeah, I know that now." I looked at him. He seemed genuinely reduced by everything that had happened. Not in a broken way, in the way that something has gotten smaller after the air's been let out of it. More real. "The worker in Seguin who got sick the worst," I said. "The one in the news." He nodded. "I know, the Reyes family. I called them. I drove to their house. The daughter was 7. I stood on their porch, and I couldn't find the right words, but I said them anyway." He paused. "I don't know if it helped anything." "It probably helped something," I said. He was quiet. "My aunt's talking about selling the company," he said. "Whatever's left of it. She and my father-in-law aren't they're not in a good place. Claire and I are working through things." I didn't ask about that. Not my territory. "You understand why I left," I said. "Yeah." He picked up a pen and turned it in his fingers. "You tried to tell me. That conversation before your last day." I heard the words. I just didn't understand them yet. "Some things you can only understand after they've cost you something," I said. That hit him. I could see it. I looked at his textbook page again. The math was right. He'd worked it correctly. That was something. "Keep going with this," I told him. "All of it. The EIT prep, the certificate program, working in the field. It'll take longer than you think, and you'll need someone to check your work for a long time before you trust your own. But if you're serious about it, the foundation builds." He looked up. "Why are you telling me that?" "Because the industry needs people who know what they're doing more than it needs any particular person to fail," I said. I stood up. He started to say something else. I tapped the table twice, left my tray where it was, and walked out into the evening. The drive back to San Antonio was an hour and 20 minutes. The sun was already down and the hill country was dark on either side of the highway, just the white lines and the taillights ahead. I drove with the radio off. I thought about Carol and about Maya, and about the version of the last 11 years where I'd done things differently, where I'd said something earlier, or left sooner, or not let the work become a substitute for everything else I was avoiding. I thought about the reservoir project in Kerrville. We'd hit a snag that week with the discharge permitting, and I had a meeting Monday morning with the TCEQ regional office, and I was actually looking forward to it. That hadn't been true in a long time, looking forward to the hard parts. My phone buzzed on the seat. Text from Marcus. "Q, 1 close numbers. You need to see these. Call me Monday." And another, a minute later, from Maya. "Still on for dinner Sunday? I found a good Italian place. Also, I might have good news. Call me later?" I dictated back. "Sunday works. Call you in 20. I drove the last stretch home in the dark, with the window cracked. Warm November air coming through, the smell of cedar brush and distant rain. I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment before going in. The house was quiet and lit up from inside, the way it is when you've left lights on and come home to them. Carol had always called it the house being glad to see you. I grabbed my bag from the back seat and went inside. 11 years at Hargrove, I'd been building something I thought was mine. Turned out I was building it for someone who was going to hand it to someone else. But the skills, the contractor relationships, the municipal contacts, the 2 decades of knowing exactly how water moves through pipes and pressure systems and regulatory frameworks, none of that went with the resignation letter. It all came with me. That's the part they don't tell you about being undervalued for a long time. When you finally leave, you're not starting over. You're just taking everything they never paid you for and going somewhere that will. I heated up leftover soup and called my daughter.
Don't pity me. My heart doesn't need your mercy. I can still stand on my own. I was broken by your leaving, fell deeper than I thought I would. But pain has taught me how to heal now and survive what once I couldn't. You don't have to look back sadly, don't reach out with guilty hands. What you shattered made me stronger. Now I rise where I once collapsed. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. I once begged for your affection. Now I've learned my worth in scars. And the man you left in pieces found his own way through the dark. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll learn to breathe again. Begun. My heart doesn't need your pity, not another empty sign. I've got enough strength left within me to rebuild this life of mine. My feet are steady through the sorrow. I can stand through all the pain. You don't have to save me, darling. I'll rise alone again. I'll rise alone again. I'm freezing. I'm bleeding, slowly fading away. But don't worry, I'm fine. The cold has settled in my heartbeat, like winter living in my veins. Every breath feels numb and fragile. Every smile just hides the pain. I'm breaking quietly in silence, falling slow without a sound. Yet I keep saying I'm okay, while my world burns to the ground. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry. I'll pretend till my last breath, even while my soul is fading. I'll say everything's okay. Maybe pain just learned to live here, Maybe sorrow feels like home, so I wear my wounds like armor and survive them all alone. I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. If you ever see me smiling, no, it's just my last defense. 'Cause sometimes love means hiding how much you're suffering. No, I'm frozen here, I'm bleeding slowly, dying piece by piece inside. But I still whisper, it's alright, just to keep you from goodbye. I'm shattered, love, but don't you worry, I'll pretend till my last breath. Even while my soul is fading, I'll say everything's okay. It's okay.